Get things moving. I will first apologize to the public for my enormous laptop screen. This is where all my notes are. I'm sorry. And where's Pua? Pua, are we ready?
Yep.
We're ready. Okay. Fantastic. Okay. So this is the regular meeting of the Woodbridge Conservation Commission, September 20th, 2018. And first up on our agenda is public comments. There are members of the community here. Is anyone interested in speaking?
Sure.
Go for it.
Just have a
Come on.
question. Is this a record turnout?
Aside from the one time we had a whole Boy Scout troop in here, this is a record turnout. Yes.
Now you have a farmer's troop. I guess I'll start, guys.
Yep, come on.
So just ask that everyone who speaks, please state your name.
Jim Urbano, U-R-B-A-N-O. I'm a member of a committee that's hoping to have an agriculture commission established in Woodbridge. So a few pieces of information to share. I think, Jason, you received a letter from Elizabeth Moore
I did, yes.
from the
And I
Connecticut.
shared that with the
Great.
commission.
So I don't need to read the letter, but she has been a wonderful supporter and advocate for farmland preservation. Her organization has protected at least 47 farms in this state in a reasonably short period of time. And related to that, she's been a help to the land trust working to protect the Baldwin Farm, 902 Baldwin Road. And related to that, I have a little good news to share. Always nice to share some good news.
Always.
I received this yesterday on behalf of the Land Trust from Cameron Weimer, Director of Farmland Preservation, Connecticut Department of Agriculture. Dear Jim, hope you're well. The Commissioner's Office, that's of the Department of Agriculture, Connecticut, approved the Hitchcock purchase of development rights and sent it to the State Property Review Board. I will submit the report to the board tomorrow, Thursday, which was yesterday. Today.
Yes.
Sorry. The board should schedule a farm visit by early October. We expect their approval soon thereafter. At that point, we can provide the Hitchcock family, the current owners of the farm, with the purchase of development rights deed for their review and signature, and I can acquire the state's payment check for 75% and inform the land trust of its 25% match amount. So
Progress.
it's been a slow road, but that's the turn we needed. So we're on track.
Excellent news.
That would be one more farm in town that will become more active, that may need help with acquiring deer fencing, may need help with infrastructure. It would be an ideal candidate for an agriculture commission to focus on and help support. Have you seen the model ordinance for an agriculture commission that we submitted to you the last meeting? You should have seen it.
Yep, we've seen a couple of them. We've seen the one that was from Oxford, that was circulated earlier this year, and then most recently there was the one that had come out from Guilford. So,
Yeah,
and I'd
yeah.
circulated that to everyone as well.
And they're all based on Public Act 11188 or something. So they're all variations of the same that public act. So really, to get the specifics of what an ag commission would do, look at the public act. But public act informs the ordinance. And I just wanted to read a couple of the responsibilities. To foster sustainable agriculture in Woodbridge, to serve as a conduit between local farmers and nonprofit agencies, to advocate for agriculture before land use commissions, to act as a resource for agricultural information, to increase awareness of agricultural enterprises, to promote the value of agricultural viability in areas of employment, property taxes, environment, and open space preservation. You can see the cross-link between agriculture and conservation. To encourage young and new farmers to recognize and support new farming operations and farms, to identify opportunities to preserve and expand agriculture in Woodbridge, to support efforts to secure the land base necessary for future agricultural uses. So you can see how purchase of Hitchcock, the connection to the Connecticut Farmland Trust, and the responsibilities of an Agriculture Commission are interrelated. How does that match to our town plan? This is key and this is critical. So you all know of the Woodbridge Town Plan of Conservation and Development. These are pages, these are copies. This is what's supposed to guide our path forward as a town. It's a blueprint for our future. So this is the new town plan. By the way, the old town plan had 902 Baldwin as the #1 candidate for protection. So it's that purchase is a fulfillment in part of the old town plan. The new town plan, page 87, has in its near-term action agenda, right, what we should be doing now, not deferring but doing. Just an excerpt. Preserve farmland, fertile soils, and local agribusiness. That's an objective of our town plan. What better to do that than a focused and dedicated agriculture commission? Further, develop policies and incentives to encourage preservation of operating and historic farms and to avoid further development of prime farmland soils. So that would be a focus of an agriculture commission. There's more, but I don't want to take too much time here. So related to that town plan, and consistent with it, and representative of a need in Woodbridge is an email from Sarah Shepard. Do you all know the Shepard Farm on Route 69? It's one of the legacy farms in Woodbridge. So Sarah Shepard, the farm is in need right now.
It's near the Darling House
Across from
area.
the Darling
Yeah, it's up,
House, that
just a
one.
little further up the road.
Yeah.
Further down on, for the Darling House, but on the left-hand side.
Yes,
Just to
yeah.
clarify. Okay, great.
Yeah. Mr. Shepard was was the bus driver for my kids at Beecher Road School. He passed away. His son, Rick, took over the farm. Unfortunately, tragic circumstances, he passed away. Sarah's trying to hold on, trying to manage the farm, but it needs help. And an agriculture commission can help. It has greater standing in applying for grants, for capital improvements, for a barn grant. What did Sarah say? An agriculture commission will be an asset for the town of Woodbridge. Woodbridge is a town with more than a few active farms. All the farms, small and large, would benefit from the addition of an agriculture commission that specifically supports farm. Sarah Shepard. So that's all I wanted to say. We need your support. We need your support.
Quick question for you,
Yeah.
Jim, before you go.
Yes.
So you had presented the Oxford ordinance.
Yeah, it's
it-
representative, yes, because it's endorsed by the Connecticut Farm Bureau. It's the model that they've provided, so I figure, why stick with the model.
All right, so I think I just need clarification for us.
So we're not
to
asking
to
for
figure
approval
out.
of a specific ordinance, because that's the job of the ordinance committee to fine tune the ordinance.
Okay.
It's all based on, informed by the Public Act. What I read to you, all of those duties, responsibilities are informed by that Public Act. So can't do any more, any less, or can do less, of course.
Right.
And it's advisory
Okay.
to boot. It's not regulatory. So all of the ordinances for the agriculture commissions in this state are based on that Public Act.
Okay.
Just as the ordinance for the Conservation Commission is based on enabling legislation. That's the same for all towns across the state.
Oh, is that a letter to be presented?
Yeah.
Yeah. You can read it. Yeah. Thank you, Jim.
All set?
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure. Thanks.
Of course. I'm Ethan Schneider. I'm the farm manager and owner of Cohen Farms. We work out of the Darling House. This year I worked with Will Conway, who is an awesome person. I don't know if you guys know him, but he worked with me the entire season. He really helped make everything happen for me this year, and he presented this letter. So I'm going to read it on his behalf because he couldn't make it. He moved to Stonington. He's becoming a teacher, working with kids, teaching them about agriculture. So my name is Will Conway. I'm an alumni of the Amity High School class of 2010. After pursuing agriculture in college and beyond, I returned to Woodbridge in 2017 and immediately started farming. I started a small shiitake mushroom operation with Leland Torrance Jr. at 17 Vernon Court and worked as the assistant manager of Cohen Farms from April 2018 through September 2018. My support for local agriculture and the Agricultural Commission in Woodbridge cannot be understated. Agriculture has been an undeniable and economic social benefits. Woodbridge is well positioned to be a leader in burgeoning small farm movement in Connecticut. Woodbridge's open space, preserved land, and proximity to New Haven make it an ideal setting for New England farming. As a young person, I want to live in a place with a strong local food system, and I'm not the only one. Increasing the agricultural identity of Woodbridge can help attract young people to Woodbridge and even has the potential to make Woodbridge a destination for agritourism. A Woodbridge Agricultural Commission would put an intentional effort behind bolstering the agricultural scene in Woodbridge, appointing people to research and take action to improve farming in Woodbridge is a productive step towards supporting existing farmers and attracting new farmers. Respectfully submitted by email, as I cannot attend Will Conway. I can vouch for Will. If anybody does not know who he is an incredibly smart young man who has an incredible passion for growing food and building what would be a breadbasket for local cities and being able to create a movement towards sustainability and the economic viability of small-scale farming. On that same note, if I could add from my own personal, so as I said before, I run the farm that functions out of the Darling House. I think I would be one of few people who say they make the majority of their income or spend the majority of their time farming town-owned land. Obviously, Massaro, Steve Munno farms town-owned land as well, and there are many people who hay local areas, but I wouldn't say that is their main focus or it's their financial well-being. For me, an agricultural commission would be really valuable as a liaison between people functioning farms on town-owned land and the ordinances and the way that the town handles these long-term agreements or short-term agreements as they are currently. I would venture to guess that most of you guys don't know the situation that is at the Darling House right now or how it's set up, which I think transparency and things like that could be really valuable to bringing bringing long-term farms in Woodbridge. I don't think most people know the situation and how I even have access to the land and what I'm allowed to use, and I think an agricultural commission would be able to provide that information and give the town a place to go when they're asking questions. Is there conservation value in running a vegetable farm? Is there economic value in running a farm? And what other quantifiable things can be brought to the table from the town-owned properties that are currently being farmed?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Say what restaurants you serve in New Haven.
Yeah, of course. So over the last 4 years, I've built a pretty strong clientele of high-end restaurants in New Haven. I don't know if any of you know, Casius Fromagerie and Bistro recently closed and is reopening under the name Olmo, hopefully October 10th. Pitch, if anybody wants to get in touch with them. The two chefs there are my closest friends, and we've been working to change the local food movement and what it means to have a farm-to-table restaurant. Alex Lischinski and Craig Hutchinson are the chefs there right now, and they are really making a footprint in sustainable food being served at high-end restaurants. I also work very closely with Chef Jean-Pierre at Union League Cafe, as well as Chef Nick at Roya. I work with Heirloom. Tomorrow they're doing the Feast in the Fields dinner at Heirloom. If anyone's interested in that, they'll be hosting an entire table dedicated to Cohen Farms, providing crudité, all from my all produce they ordered this afternoon that I'll be picking tomorrow morning. I also serve Harvest. I also serve the Beer Collective, which is a small client of mine, but they really focus on really awesome local food and the craft beer movement. Finally, I work with August, which is a small 18-seat wine bar in New Haven that focuses on high-end wine and small plates. All have been incredibly valuable to me in building my business and also creating a real economic viability for small farmers. These restaurants are what support everyone day to day, not only them, but the local community and our CSA. The CSA, the local community of Woodbridge, has been incredibly supportive of my ventures through the CSA, and then, like I said, through the restaurant clientele in New Haven. And to continue to grow that business is what I'm looking to do and what I think an agricultural commission can support.
I have a question for you. As a farmer, who
Yes.
do you feel should staff an agricultural commission?
Yeah, of course. So I feel that the main people on the agricultural commission there should be at least one person who's making the majority of or spending the majority of their time working full time as a farmer. I think it's important that you have a subset of people who have been interested or active in agriculture in the past, who have potentially moved on to consulting or some more managerial in the business mind. So you can get someone who sees it from a business mindset versus just the pure agricultural mindset. And I also think it would be valuable to have someone who is interested in some type of real estate. Or the ability to contract leases and work with the town on what's appropriate in a real estate setting to get people set up and moving forward. Because the biggest issue with farmers starting up is capital, having enough money, and having land. And I think that was brought up at the Farmers Forum by Steve. He said it, and the gentleman from the Branford Agricultural Commission said the same thing. The two biggest barriers in small farms is capital and land access. And having people who are knowledgeable of those things to help guide young farmers would be incredibly essential and valuable. Of course.
Is there anybody else that would like to come up and speak? Yeah.
Good evening.
Evening.
My name is Gennaro Savino, and I've been living in Woodbridge for the last 47 years. I run a small farm, small vineyard on Ford Road in Woodbridge. Has been operating since 2000, and we have a tasting room since 2007. Our tasting room draws about 200 people. Right now we're only open Saturday and Sunday, and we're drawing about 200 people for those 2 days. 75% of those people come from out of town. I believe that an agricultural commission would be fundamental to the future, not only of my farm, but for all the other small farms, and it would send a signal, not only to me, but to the next generation, my grandson, my son, that want to take over the business. They can see that there's some kind of support. I think without an agricultural commission in this town, the farms, you might as well forget about it.
All right.
That's
Thank
it. Have you tried my wines?
I have. Right when you opened up, way back, when we were starting up in the summer, I remember coming
Thanks.
down. All right.
How you doing? Keith Arnold. I lease a lot of land. I have cattle. The biggest problem I have is I'm going on good faith, year to year. I could see the field, and next year you guys would be like, well, we're gonna get perfect example. I farmed Hitchcock's property for 20 years, and out of the blue you gave it to Mark Santora. I was abandoned cornfields. I seeded it, power raked all the rocks, did all the work, and then farmed it for 20 years, and then just like this, it's gone. So there's no guidelines.
So you'd like to see longer leases on the land, is what I'm guessing.
Well, I'm going on good faith,
Yeah.
and the faith's not so good. So I put a lot of money and effort into it, and getting no respect back.
Gotcha.
And I'll second just that the amount of work that farmers put into land builds year to year and year. And when we're putting thousands of dollars in labor and input into the soil to build good soil ecology so that we can have food for 10 years, I need reassurance that the money I'm putting in and the work and the tractor work that I'm putting into the land is going to be back to me in 10 years, because it's not a 1 year returning cycle. You know, it's not like I put something in this year, it comes out of the ground perfect, and then, you know, that didn't do anything for the next 10 years. It takes 10, 15 years to build ecology in soil, to build sustainable systems that are going to provide high quality food for our community.
Yeah, that's basically need some kind of better variance on the land or something.
Yeah.
Very good.
But that's my opinion.
Thank you, Keith.
Hello, I'm Andrea Urbano. While that topic is hot, I would like to add to it, specifically regarding the lease lengths, but also regarding farming practices in general. I work at a farm, not in Woodbridge, in Shelton, and our credo is be good to the land, and the land will be good to you. There is little incentive to be good to the land, to take that extra time, thought, labor, and usually greater expenses associating with farming sustainably. And by sustainably, I mean in accordance with principles of integrated pest management. I mean considering ecological systems and factors and climate change. There are certain farmings, like a Christmas tree farm, that couldn't even exist in Woodbridge on public land due to the 1 year leases, because it takes 7 years for that crop to become sellable. So that restriction also limits the the agricultural economy in Woodbridge to to specific types of crops like vegetables. It's not really viable for some forms of livestock and other crops like Christmas trees. I have a dream of being a Christmas tree farmer in Woodbridge, and right now that's an impossibility unless I can somehow, as a 29-year-old, come up with the finances to buy a parcel large enough to do that. In addition, I am obviously in favor of an agriculture commission in the town of Woodbridge. And I hope that you see this as an opportunity where you can help the town meet needs that are not currently being met, to help the town create a sustainable, healthy, viable future for generations. And establishing an agriculture community supports the agricultural economy and farmers in this town. It can promote efficient and effective working relationships and partnerships with agencies and landowners and departments within the town of Woodbridge. And who is complaining about local sources of food and fresh air and opportunities for teenagers and high school students and children to get involved and be exposed to these practices? I just see huge potential for the town of Woodbridge with an agriculture commission in place. Not just for the farmers, but for the residents and youth at large. So I really appreciate you hearing us, and I really hope you support us. So, yes.
Can you talk more about the needs that you see are not being met?
Yes, absolutely. So, in being a part of this effort to establish an agricultural commission, I've had the pleasure of speaking with and hearing from a lot of farmers in this town, or younger people or older people who are interested in doing something with their land. One need that was brought up at our Farmers Forum was finding labor for farmers. And I think the commission could help establish those partnerships, establish apprenticeships, and long-lasting relationships with our teenagers, our high schoolers, our youth, and these farmers. There are economic, financial needs that meet a farmer who doesn't need, more financial support, and an agriculture commission sets Woodbridge, gives us a leg up, so to speak, in acquiring grant money from the state. So that's a huge one right there.
How does that give you a leg up, having the commission as opposed to a committee or?
Well, there are certain grants that are agricultural specific that are only considered if an agriculture commission specifically applies for them.
Is that something you have checked into? Or?
Yeah, we still haven't got that as a fact. I mean,
Okay.
By having the Conservation Commission, it definitely qualifies us. There might be a higher potential for rating
Okay,
with the grant application, but an application could be made.
sure.
Yeah.
So
If I can just comment on that, specifically, there are probably 14 different grants available. Some of them specifically say you do have to have an agriculture commission. The one that was discussed by us, the Community Farms Preservation Program, the CFPP, specifically states, item 2, in order for a municipality to be eligible, you must establish an agricultural commission and or a program for farmland preservation. That's the wording.
Okay, thank you, Leland. So regardless, it would help secure funding. And another need, which was just discussed, is for extended leases and for farmers to have a greater voice of authority to help influence and establish these changes that would increase their improve their farming practices potentially, but also just secure their livelihoods. Additionally, and I see this from the farm where I work has been around since the 1800s. It's several hundred acres, and I've noticed what a great farming community there is in Shelton. How supported the farmers feel, not only by the town, but by each other. It has showed me not only the potential, but also the value of farmers helping farmers, and the town helping farmers. And I just think this commission would really meet what I see as a need of kind of strengthening the community, creating a stronger, more impactful voice and a resource for those interested in farmers and farming and those currently farming.
What towns have agricultural commissions?
I don't have a prepared list. In Connecticut, we know Oxford and Guilford do, but I know that there are several others.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I can't really
I
speak
think
to
there's
that.
about 22 towns
Thank you, Jason.
out of the, I think it's 169 towns.
And
but-
Shelton doesn't have one?
Shelton does not have an agricultural commission, no. But Shelton is very different from the town of Woodbridge.
And if I can comment, what's interesting is neither does Orange. But if you look at who runs Orange, it's all farmers.
Correct.
So in fact, they have such a heavy lobby anyway, and they also have a much greater, they have Route 1, right? We don't have that sort of thing. Shelton has Route 8. And so they've had a wonderful confluence in development, which has allowed for the luxury to assist all the farmers. So in both cases, they really haven't needed the advocacy that a small town like us that doesn't really have a good business tax base.
Thank you, Leland. Yeah.
If I could add just one thing about the needs not being met. kind of like to what Leland said, is that we in Woodbridge don't necessarily have a lobby for farmers. We don't have a group of people who are really building the effort to provide farmers with what they need. And I think, in my opinion, an agricultural commission would be valuable to help if the town of Woodbridge's needs are that they want to push forward with agriculture and sustainability and promoting farmers here, then the town of Woodbridge needs someone to help teach them what a farmer is and what a farmer does. I would venture to guess that the Board of Selectmen or the majority of the government in Woodbridge couldn't tell you how long it takes to bring a cattle to market. And that's something that's really important when it comes to leasing land. For example, it takes about 18 months. So if you have a 12-month lease, what do I do with a 12-month-old cow when my lease runs up? It would be a really valuable asset to the Board of Selectmen and to the other governing bodies in Woodbridge to have a resource that they could go to that have smart, young, or old, or middle-aged people who would be there to to just give them the information that they need, and they can trust that these people are smart and have done their due diligence and know the answers to those questions, and they don't need to fiddle around on Google to figure out.
Or if they
what
don't
they
know,
need.
they know where to go to find them.
Exactly. Exactly. They could be a resource. If the 4 or 6 people on the Agricultural Commission can't answer that, would have dozens of resources of other farmers from Maine to Ohio to California to Florida. I could find dozens and dozens of resources to help provide information to the town that they might not be able to easily access.
So that's something you can do anyway without a commission. You can go speak to, I don't even know who would be, Board of Selectmen or planning zone, whoever does the leases, and say, this.
Well, that's
one
the
year-
that would be a solid question. Who does the leases?
Yeah.
Who writes the town-owned leases, and when do I have an opportunity to go speak to that person in the process of writing said lease?
There should be a policy that applies to the farmers.
I sign a lease every year, and I don't even know the answer to that question. And so something along those, and so that could be about me doing more due diligence. But if there was a commission that I could have contacted and talked to about that, who could have put me in front of the right people, and who could have had like I said before about the people who sit on it, had 4 people who were knowledgeable about signing leases and running farms on municipalities who could guide me through that system, it would be much easier for me to commit to farming in Woodbridge for the next 25 years.
Do you have any members from your group that would serve for 4 years as
I would. I mean,
Without a shadow of a doubt,
Yeah,
I would sit on
with
the board
no
for 4
questions
years
asked.
if I could get a 4-year lease.
okay, 'cause there is some commitment there. So, if there, yeah, we need, it's a commitment for 4 years
Yeah.
for at least 3 people.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Maria Kane, 1891 Litchfield Turnpike. I think one of the questions that's really clouding this situation is why an agriculture commission, what is it over a conservation commission? Well, I can speak about this personally because I was a member of the Conservation Commission. One of the biggest farm preservation projects that happened, after I was on the Conservation Commission is the preservation of a big farm, which is Baldwin Farm. Okay? Now, that is quite successful now because a bunch of other people outside of the Conservation Commission rallied and were very passionate about it, so they were able to accomplish it. So that was not done by the Conservation Commission. I know that in dealing with that issue, the Conservation Commission, after my tenure, was politically involved in protecting or helping Derby. So it was a political decision. They did not want to join the preservation of this farm. But that's a huge farm. And it was very important for the farmers to see that, what the Conservation Commission would do, that, and they did nothing. Am I correct?
No, but go ahead.
You're not, am I not correct?
You're not correct, but you can.
Oh yeah, I'd
your
like to know
comments.
what that is, because that's the thinking of these farmers. They don't see the Conservation Commission as that kind of commission that would actually promote them and protect them. So to get out of that political situation, a lot of these farmers have gotten together, and that's why they want an agricultural commission. I think that's a very important thing to understand. So that's why they're here, and they're very intent on it. I mean, we don't need to re-explain. It's been redundant how good this conservation commission can be. I mean, this agricultural commission can be and what it can do. And I hope you hear their voices, because it's very good for the town. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Maria.
But you know what? I'd like you to educate me. How did the conservation help Baldwin?
I can run through the history for you if you'd like. So back in 2013, it was Jim and some others from the land trust that came to the town. We engaged in discussions internally with the town, and then made an effort to go to Derby, because the property is 77 acres, 11 of which is in Woodbridge. And knowing that majority of the property is in Derby, there would have been challenges to purchase the property from Derby. Derby would rather have that property be turned into, as we all know, a development. And there was proposals before TPZ at the time as well to have a entrance to the parcel that was being developed from Woodbridge. So we went to the Derby Town Hall, the mayor at the time. We engaged with her over several discussions. They showed absolutely no interest in going into a joint venture, even though Derby would be a prime candidate for the Open Space and Watershed Acquisition Grant, because they're considered a distressed municipality. We would have received approximately 85% of the purchase price of that parcel if they were to join with us. And also at the time, there was very muddy waters as to what the value of that parcel was. The very rough estimate that was being put forward at the time was between 1.8 and $2 million. And at that time, the town of Woodbridge did not have the deep pockets for it. We had already gone through the purchase of the country club, and we all know where that stands now. We were not eager to engage in going further into debt on a parcel of which the majority was in Derby. This was not because we did not want to preserve the parcel. It was just that it was not a fiscally responsible action to make at the time. And discussions trailed off for a while. There was no further discussion for quite some time. Nothing was brought to the Conservation Commission's attention for many years until most recently, and I only heard about it through Betsy and some other members of the town, that there was some action going forward at the land trust, and then there were the flyers and the lawn signs that came up all around the town, and I was personally very pleased that it was being acted upon on the private side, because I knew that the town itself was going to have difficulty negotiating that path forward. So there was lots of effort and lots of thought put into it. I'm sorry that there's been a bad flavor in the mouths of everybody, that there's that perception that the Conservation Commission was acting in bad faith or abandoning the farmers. That's not at all what we would like to have people go away with.
Yeah, Jason, this gets me thinking. I mean, I am very supportive of everything that you've said, and the lease issue sounds like something that needs to be addressed. My question is, what's the best way to do it, and is a commission the best way to do it? Just based on the comments we just heard, do we want to add a whole other layer of bureaucracy in this town that already has a lot of bureaucracy for a very small town? And would things happen faster for you if there was a committee on the Conservation Commission working together to do this, as opposed to having a more adversarial approach, the way that sounded?
It's important to remember that the Agricultural Commission wouldn't be creating any rules or regulations. They would only be there to help influence or recommend to the town. And so I think that though there could be, obviously you are adding another layer of bureaucracy or red tape like you're referring to, the intention from what I see would be that they would be there to recommend the best path forward and be able to make things happen quicker, instead of having to gather your resources, do your due diligence, talk to all the different farmers, put everything together, and you would have to appoint a person to do all of those things in order to figure out what the best lease for the farmer is. Whereas if you had a commission, you could have someone who's there and done it before and been a part of that system.
But I think what the issue is that what I'm hearing, Tracy, we need to work together. It shouldn't be like, us against them. I think it's wonderful, all these things, but I wouldn't want to have another committee so that we can argue amongst ourselves. So I think whatever is created needs to be in the best interest of everyone, and everybody needs to work together in good faith, as opposed to, if you create this thing, then it's like, well, the conservation, I think you have a skewed perception of what we're all here voluntarily because we care about the town, and
I think we got a little off track.
My
Yeah.
point is that
I think
We would absolutely would
so
work
the point is that
cooperatively.
absolutely we support that. We just want to make sure that it's in the best efficient and way possible. But we certainly don't want to create a committee that's going to go against all the work that we do or feel that we're
Why would
somehow
you
against
think-
what you're
Why
doing.
would you think that we would work against what you do?
I don't. Well,
That's absolutely
I'm-
not anything.
Okay, well, I
Yeah.
just wanted to clarify that, and I just
Sure.
want to, clear the air and just, because there has been some emails going around that I was, I feel like I love this town, and we all want to conserve it, and I think it's wonderful, like what you guys are saying. I just think that we need to figure out a way, like Tracy said, so that
We would have to work
that's
together.
all.
It's
So
your-
we can work together in good faith. That's what would be my vote, in terms of that. So.
I absolutely agree with you 100%. I think there should be either the chairman or a member of the Conservation Commission who would be a dedicated member to an agricultural commission. There needs to be cooperation. It's your organization that puts together, for example, or makes recommendations for open space purchases. It'd be an ideal opportunity for an agriculture commission to recommend to the Conservation Commission or work with the Conservation Commission in coming up with a list of properties that may be in jeopardy, that may be prioritized for protection. And when it comes time to doing a grant application, get the support of the Conservation Commission for that grant application. There's in no way should there be a sentiment that an agricultural commission would compete with the Conservation Commission. You have a state statute that informs your responsibilities, and they're parallel to what the Agriculture Commission would do, but different. It's like economic development and conservation. You have a mission, an Agriculture Commission has a mission, but it's more focused on agriculture. Yours is broader.
I'm confused by that.
No.
Well,
Why
I
would-
also want to kind of reel it back in and try to make public comment be public comment and the discussion up here instead of a whole room discussion.
Well, I want to
because-
ask him a specific question about something you just said.
yeah,
kind of
and honestly, I think all this would be great for a second farmers forum, by the way. This is all good stuff for that. Anyway,
Yeah.
yes.
When I hear about the assistance with grant applications, which I think is needed, it doesn't sound like a town commission responsibility. It sounds like,
It is.
to me, it sounds like a non-profit responsibility. Like, it's not something that's going to necessarily benefit the whole town. It may, if the farm succeeds, but that's really with any business. And do we have a small business commission that helps small businesses receive grants? I'm not sure that's a commission responsibility. I would appreciate if you could explain more
Well,
about that.
the Community Investment Act, every real estate transaction, a percentage of it goes to a fund of which the Connecticut Department of Agriculture, specifically the Farmland Preservation Office, gets a percentage of. So there's funding in Hartford ready to be spent now, which we are availing ourselves of for 902 Baldwin Road right now. That funding source we would compete with other towns for, but we would bring to Woodbridge for the benefit of Woodbridge. It's as Jason had said, and I agree with Jason, an agriculture commission has a higher standing in applying for such grants. So at the Farmers Forum, we talked about this, Elizabeth Moore talked about it as well, that a agriculture commission has a better chance of getting those funds because it's focused on agriculture, it understands the local needs of agriculture, and has a relationship with the Department of Agriculture, whose responsibility is to foster agriculture in Connecticut. So it's a cooperative arrangement, cooperative relationship. It could do much, that commission, an agriculture commission, can do much to bring those CIA monies to Woodbridge. We're doing it now.
But I think your question was the benefit to an individual farmer for federal grants like EQIP and WHIP that a farmer themselves apply for versus
Yes.
a town applying for. So there are grants out there that it would be up to the farmer himself or them or herself to apply for.
Right.
And the town wouldn't necessarily have any play in it. And I think you're right, having a fork from economic development focused on local business development focused on farmers is something to
Well, that's what an agriculture commission would do. That's part of its charge, to focus on farmers.
Yeah.
So it's specific to farming. The focus is on farming.
Right.
And
I think just generally one of the struggles that we have up here is we have so many overlapping purposes in town. Another good example is this commission and CUPOP, the Commission on the Use of Publicly Owned Properties. There's a lot of overlap and sometimes it gets very muddy. I think one of the concerns is the overlap between ag commissions and conservation commissions could also get muddy. Likewise, conservation commissions and inland wetlands commissions. There's a lot of interplay, and the best way to solve it obviously is through clear communication and
Yes.
often communication.
and with a positive outlook. I mean, if we take a positive approach, you can do, the Conservation Commission can focus on its mission, an Agriculture Commission can focus on its mission and take care of the needs of the farmers. Economic Development can see to the development of our business district. And there's cooperative overlap. That should not be negative, it can be positive.
We have almost 90 commissions and committees and whatever in this town, so it can't be taken lightly. I mean, we really have to consider it before we consider having another one.
Well, I think, Frank,
that's my take.
one of the things about the 90 is when Mika first told me there were 90 commissions, I said, can you give me the list? He said,
Well,
actually, we don't have a list.
That's
But
there's quite a few.
what was the result of the commissions was a movement that, a local movement of a lot of people that got together and say, we want a commission, we want representation. And so a commission would be formed, and then a lot of those commissions, there are probably only 21 that are even active now. A lot of those went away when there wasn't interest
There's
anymore.
a lot of responsibility in forming these commissions, because that's
So-
exactly what happens. They get formed,
Yeah.
and then, 5 or 10 years down the line.
But it doesn't, doesn't,
not there
because the
anymore.
commission is formed, my point is that if you have the most amount of people you've ever had at a meeting here saying, we want this, why wouldn't we let them have it? Why wouldn't
Well,
we
we are
support it?
seriously considering it. We're
Yeah.
not saying we're not going to.
We hope you do seriously consider it.
We are.
With these 90 or 21 commissions in place, there is still a need that is not being met for the farmers in this town, and that is why we are here tonight. So, yes, there are several commissions. Yes, there's a lot involved in maybe establishing one, but that's not to say that there's not a need for another. I think we represent that need before you tonight. One last thing I want you to consider is the life of a farmer. How many hours a farmer works. It is outrageous. Almost 24/7. And depending on your crop, sometimes it is. To have a commission in place to save that farmer time from having to Google and sort through whatever answers it needs met would be such a value to farmers here. So I know it's hard to know what farming really is until you do it, but as a farmer, I can say that having a commission would be incredibly helpful for me and my fellow farmers, and hopefully for those who are interested in doing it. And I think that number of people is expanding. And where do you want people to do it? You know, if so. Thank you. I'll stop talking.
Okay.
Yeah,
This is
well,
the
there's
longest public comments, I think, in the history of
Yeah,
any
we
commission.
have.
But is there anybody else that would like to? Doesn't have to be about agriculture, but.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Nancy Silverstein. I'm here with my husband Steven Silverstein. We live on a 20.5 acre parcel in town. We are not officially farmers, but my husband spends countless hours a day producing our own food. I can't say we're self-sustaining, but he usually produces enough food to bring us through into the spring, which I think is a pretty incredible feat for somebody who has a full-time profession. And speaking to Andrea's point, he gets up at 5 in the morning, he spends a few hours outside, he goes to his job, he comes home, and he's back out helping to produce our food, which we share with family and friends. I want to make a few points. I haven't been able to come to other meetings, so I'm new to the atmosphere here. I don't understand how come it feels like these two commissions are mutually exclusive in their philosophy and their goals. They're not, and I don't see why there can't be these two bodies working for parallel causes and cooperating. When my husband has questions about what to do with a field, or when to cut them, or how to cut them, or why to cut them, we don't call somebody in conservation. We call our friend who's a farmer. And that's the point. There's a little bit of self-determination, and there's generations of knowledge that can be shared and can help people like ourselves who just do it for ourselves, or people who do it as their profession. But there is something to be said by having mentors who've worked in the field forever and have a base of knowledge to share, and in sharing you produce a wonderful environment where children grow up knowing something besides Cheetos.
It's true.
That's my last set.
Thank you. All right.
Is there someone else?
Yes.
Tom.
All right.
Jason had asked me to talk. My name is Tom Ebersold. I've been maintaining the trails at West Rock Ridge State Park on a volunteer basis since 2007. And he wanted me to address the question of the Nugent property and the trail that's informally on there that you would like to see established, and one I've long wanted to see established. One of the things I've done at West Rock over the years is make connections for trails that didn't have connections before. I'm trying to pursue one at the other end of the property, trying to connect the Sanford feeder coming out from Bethany over to the Quinnipiac Trail to make a connection. And right now the problem with the Darling House property is there's only one official way up to the ridge, and that makes it hard to do a loop hike. You kind of go out and back the same way. So if you had another trail, that would make that much more accessible. So if whatever you could do to pursue that would be great. I know you've talked about an easement, but I'm thinking in terms of just getting written permission, because under the state's, the state law, a property owner is not liable for allowing passive recreational use unless there's a gross, negligence is proved. So I think that'd be a great trail to have. And then last summer, a friend and I, we went from the Woodbridge side and said, okay, can we find another trail up there on the Woodbridge land, so West Rock? And the answer was physically no. In every case we found was that you start off on the Woodbridge Trail, you come up the ridge, it's a little soggy, then you hit like a boulder field, you can get through that, and then it gets really steep and really slippery, and then you hit the cliffs. So we could not find another alternative to that trail, which I would love to, because it would make life a whole lot easier than trying to
Did you
negotiate.
go from the Hamden side?
Can you
Oh, there's
go up?
plenty of trails on
Yeah,
Hamden side.
I've gone up the okay, so you're talking about from the
From the
Woodbridge
Woodbridge side,
okay.
just the nature of Chop Rock Ridges is when they tilted and formed, they're much steeper on the west slope than on the east slope. So
Okay.
coming up from Hamden is, I think it's probably
There's
6
ways
trails.
to get up, right, okay, good, I just wanted to check, okay.
So, but there's only one coming down from the Woodbridge side. I think if you went further up the ridge onto the Watercommon land, you could find
Like
a
from the
second
Nugent
loop.
side, right.
But it
Okay.
would be good to have one more at the Darling
That's a
House.
great
Could we
idea.
start at Darling House, go up to the ridge, do whatever you do,
And come back down.
come back around and come all the way around. And that said, by the way, I know a couple years ago you were pursuing a trail from the state, you were like by the tennis dome, and I actually hiked that because the state asked me about it, and that one I was not in favor of because that's a 20% slope. I went up there with a couple of friends who were hikers. All three of us slipped and fell on a dry day because a lot of leaves, a lot of loose rocks. So if we were to establish a trail there, that would be a huge amount of work. You'd
Would
really
you
need
be
to build step.
willing to chair a walk in that area and show us some of the things you're thinking
For the
new trail that you're thinking
So
of?
you're thinking going straight all the way back down onto the Nugent and then up that way, is that
Well,
what-
basically taking the trail he has, which by the way is on OpenStreetMap, you can look at it, and just making sure that
Yeah,
that's the
that's
best trail for the area. I'd be happy to work in terms of design, for that. Once you issue me, you get it, permission for that. But the point being is that I tried on 3 different visits to try to find another way and could not find one. So I think it is good if you can get that one established.
So your recommendation is perhaps not go for the formal easement, but if we can get a written agreement from the landowner that's
Yes,
sufficiently
because one of the hats I wear is I'm a trail manager for Connecticut Forested Park, which does the Blue Trail, the Regicides, the Sanford Feeder, and the Westhill Feeder, and that is a common practice they have is they get written permission. The only problem with that is people can more easily yank it, but I think it's easier to get because easements carry with the connotation of, oh, it's on the land record, it makes it harder to sell my land.
So it would be a starting point at least, you could even
Yeah.
still work towards it.
So just get ultimately get some permission, because I had heard that Mr. Nugent was opposed to having people on the land because he was allowing hunting, and then Jason's saying maybe he's not allowing the hunting anymore. And of course, there's no hunting on Sunday anyway. So, but anyway, so
I don't believe he allows hunting anymore,
No
so.
trespass, didn't Nugent put all those no trespass?
Yeah,
Yeah, cause there's
that's-
quite a few, like, I don't know.
That's the
if you
border
can-
of
right,
that
on the
property
border,
and the
yeah.
Darling House property.
There's like a lot, okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious if the town did or who did it.
yeah. And by the way, it brings him customers that potentially because they're parking right by his farm.
Uh-huh.
So
There's also wild ramps back there for miles.
If we're hungry along the way, we can just pick and eat
Yeah.
as we walk.
And one other comment is it'd be great if the commission could look at addressing some of the invasive plant species on its properties, because you have a lot around the Darling House, a lot of multiflora rose, which at times I've gone up to the roads, I've hacked through it, a lot of burning bush or winged euonymus by the river area, and that is just negative to the ecosystem because it drives out the local plants.
That's a great idea.
Okay, thank you.
Anytime.
All right. Any other public comments?
So
Right.
that's an example of what an important duty of the Conservation Commission, and that's very hard. So, I mean, it just highlights the fact that we need another kind of commission just to deal with farming and their issues and their problems. Thank you.
I just want to thank everyone for coming, and speaking for myself, I think I've thought about this issue more than anything on the Conservation Commission. And it's something I do take very seriously, and I'm thinking a lot about. So I just thank you for coming. I appreciate hearing all your input.
I think from all of us, we say thank you for listening. Yeah, and just bringing up this conversation and seeing where we can go from here to just better Woodbridge.
Okay, thank you.
And I gotta get down to your place and see your latest.
Yeah, you gotta come see it because it doesn't look anything like the last time you tilled 40 years ago.
I know.
We got plenty of vegetables too.
Excellent. Excellent. Maybe I'll knock on your door and see if you wanna give me
Yeah,
some.
anytime.
Thanks again.
I'm always out there. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you,
you
everybody.
for being here.
Appreciate it.
Tom, we're doing it, before you leave, we're doing a walk November 4th through there if you're available. Through that area. So it'll be in the morning. I'll email you. All right, I'll cut you an email. Okay, great.
No, we're not. No, that would've been too much tonight. Yeah. Yes. No, I wanted to keep it, that's the big focus tonight, and then we'll hit some lighter stuff.
We can vote on it next week.
Well, we'll talk about it and see what we can come up with.
Oh, wow. There was quite a few comments there.
It was.
I don't know.
All right, well, we'll wait for things to settle before we continue here.
All right, can we go on with the meeting?
Okay. Second on the agenda tonight. What time is it? Woo!
Okay.
That was excellent. No, but
That was the most we ever had.
Yeah.
That was the most, public
I'm
comment
just
we
so
ever had,
stunned.
so.
I mean, you know where I stand on all this, but I'm just so stunned with the youth that's doing this and the fact that somebody like Ethan.
Enough with the youth. I'm insulted. That's the only thing I want to say. I don't care how you.
Silverstein.
I know they're still.
No, but I
leaving.
just.
I'm mad.
You know, that they're building these connections with, you know, these restaurants and.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, they have the energy. They're doing so good without the Conservation Commission. Why do they need it? They seem to have the energy.
Well,
They're doing great.
We're not on that
Wait,
part of the
we'll-
agenda.
We'll get there, yes, we'll get there.
Okay, we'll
there.
get to it.
Second on the agenda
Okay.
is to review and approve the minutes of the July 19th meeting. Everybody remember that? That happened.
I did,
That was
I
that.
did reread them.
Okay. Is there, I will make a motion to approve the July 19th.
I'll second the motion.
Minutes.
I read it.
Is there any discussion about the July 19th?
No.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I wasn't here, so.
I wasn't here
Opposed?
I wasn't here.
Abstention. You can vote if you weren't here.
You can't vote or you can't.
You can vote to
I'm
approve
fine
or.
with it.
Those
I
are
read
the
it.
That's
really
it.
long
Jason
ones.
was here.
That was.
It was, I got 'em. It was
Is anyone in favor or are
It was
people
fairly
abstaining?
long.
Everybody's in favor, right? No?
I'm in favor.
Yes,
That was
we're all for
Yeah,
it.
if I wasn't
Oh,
here,
I'm in
how can I
favor.
approve?
Because you read it.
There's a really long one that I really didn't have time to go through
I read it.
properly.
So let's do one more time. All in favor?
Aye.
Abstention?
Yep.
Okay.
You're at six, that's
Okay.
it. Yeah.
I wasn't here.
She,
Oh.
it's fine. She can. Yeah, that's totally okay. Just like, I want everybody to feel comfortable to vote against things. When you feel against something, don't feel like you have to go with the tide. You know, it's okay to have a different opinion. Okay, 2018 trail walks. Quick update. We did not have one in August or September. Also because it was blazing hot most of the time in August and
Or
September.
pouring rain.
Or horrible rain. October, the Massaro Farm's not doing their annual Family Fun Day. The plan was to do a trail walk on that property that coincided with the Family Fun Day, but since they're not doing that,
Are they not doing it?
I think they're not doing it because they didn't get it organized.
They don't have an ad commission?
Yeah, they don't have their, actually there was a committee, and I don't think that committee formed up this year. At least there used to be a committee when I was there. October is currently available, but I want Frank to talk briefly about his idea for November, and then I want to come back to October.
Well, like we were saying before, there's a lot of interest in the Nugent property because that's a strategic piece, as we all know, between our trails and where we intend to establish the West River Greenway, running by Knowles Pond. At any rate, there's interest from the New Haven Bird Club, also our West River Watershed Coalition, and I understand probably even the Woodbridge Land Trust is interested. So they're interested in doing a walk there. So I was thinking November 4th we do the walk there rather than
What was the third?
anywhere else. Excuse me?
Who was the third body that's interested? The Land Trust?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the Woodbridge Land Trust. I think they were going to bring it up to them at their body, so to the body. So they'll probably have some representatives there. So if we do a walk, perhaps we can talk with them and get them to advocate for us to open that up for access. You know,
And maybe we
possibly
can get,
send a letter to Mr. Nugent or whatever. You know.
I think it would be great if we could get a hold of Nugent to get agreement to access, at least for even just that one day, for a trail walk on
That'd be
that
great.
parcel, just because it's an area that most people would stay away because you see all the no trespassing
Oh, yeah, I
signs,
mean,
that
there's
keeps
so
people
many,
out.
that's
You
why.
can actually find a couple areas where there are no trespassing signs.
Well, that's why I was like surprised he's being friendly, cause he's not, all those signs are not that friendly.
But I was
We'll also need permission from Warren, West Rock Materials, Warren Luciani, but I can get that one. I can
Okay.
get that for sure, because we'll probably do the same walk that we did, Lima
You
was
guys had
there on
kind
that one,
of
right?
brushwhacked a
And,
little bit.
Yeah, were we the only ones on that?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I think we were.
Yeah,
Because, I mean, along those lines, I think what would be really cool is, I've just tried to get involved with the West River Alliance.
Watershed Coalition, right, yeah.
Yeah, Watershed Coalition, I can never remember the names.
That's okay.
But,
It's fine.
I think it'd be great if we actually connected with them and saw part of the New Haven piece. Or see, or, you know, that we actually go out instead of having other people come to us.
Oh, we'll have other
And-
walks in New Haven.
And the other thing is then do the north part that, what is his name? again?
Tom.
Tom.
Yep.
You know, so do the north part would be, it'd be kinda cool.
Sure, sure. Well, Tom will be here for the north part probably. He'll probably come with us if we do this one, the November 4th, I'm sure.
So I was thinking to complement the November 4th walk on the West Rock side, maybe we could have an October walk on the, I think they're technically called the West Bishop Trail. Anyways, the Boy Scout camp.
Yes.
Oh, okay, you're
That
talking
run-
about,
that runs
yeah.
up along the ridge, power
Bishop
lines,
West, Bishop West.
behind the Shepherd
Right,
Farm,
right, right. I know
around
just
the
where you
quarry
mean.
area.
And when would that
We
be?
tried to hike that trail, and there's like a big hornet's nest somewhere on it, and one of
Yeah,
my
that might be a
daughters and
good
my
idea.
nephew got
Attacked.
attacked
Oh,
by
really?
Well,
yeah.
hopefully
bees.
by now it has been dug up because all the yellow-faced or the
Do they all
ground
die
bees
off
are,
at some point?
they
Yeah.
do die off, and also skunks eat them.
Oh, that's good.
So I've had, in our yards, the skunks have dug up
Good,
some
get the
ground
skunks
bees.
or the bees.
Were they, was it an underground?
Yeah, the
It-
ground
yeah.
nests.
Yeah, that's
Huge.
those are the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I thought maybe in October have a walk on the Boy Scout side, and then walk in
we'll do
November
the other
is the
side,
other
yeah,
side.
put put both of those trails together, kind of.
Would
When
you
in
go to the
October
quarry and
should be
back, or
okay.
like how?
In October, if I were to lead it, I would have to shift the date because I'm away the first weekend in October, so it would be the 13th or 20th.
I'm not available either of those.
Or would you go to the quarry and back, or no?
Well, I think we'd
What?
probably go
How
out
do
to
you
the
know
quarry
that?
and back, yeah.
Is there another way besides double
I'm
back?
away the 13th
No.
and the 20th is
Okay.
my daughter's
Yeah.
birthday.
Oh,
Unfortunately.
I was just very
Um,
impressed.
Jason,
I have two calendars, I can never remember.
It's a crazy time of year.
Oh, that's right, because October's a busy month with the town with Fallapalooza and all kinds of other stuff, so,
Yeah.
yes. Betsy's gonna
Well,
grab
the
a
road
little.
race is on the 6th, but that's also the holiday weekend, and you're away that weekend.
Right, yeah.
I was surprised on the Fallapalooza how many activities there were at the beer place downtown.
Yeah.
Most
Yeah.
of them were at the
Yeah, well, they've got that big
What do you
parking
call it?
area now, they've got a lot of space
Yeah.
to have.
Yeah, it's
it.
plenty of room.
New England Brewery. Yeah, there were a lot of activities. there.
So on the weekend of the 13th, there's nothing. And then on Saturday the 20th, there's an arts festival over at the First Church. And then that following Sunday, so the 21st, is the Thomas Darling Open House, and they're doing a hike as well.
Really?
So
Oh,
if
excellent.
you're available, the 13th might be better since
What's
there's
the hike
less
date for,
conflict.
what's Thomas Down?
They do an open house hearth and hike.
Oh, I didn't know there was a hike part of it. And what's the date on that?
The 21st.
Have you been to that? It's really nice.
Well, I've
They
certainly
open
been
up-
to the hearth,
They
but yeah.
dress up in the old colonial outfits and they open up the hearth and they have like they cook like cider on it. It's lovely.
Cool.
It is, I do recommend.
I'm in.
It's nice. It's a nice
All
little.
right,
thing to do.
I would like to pencil in October 13th. I don't have access to my
October
maybe
13th.
on my phone. I've got my calendar because my computer's not on the World Wide Web at the moment.
And what time would that be?
I would probably do it. My God, the days are getting shorter, but it would be earlier. I want to say 9:30 or 10. I'm a morning person, so I would be happy. Well, you are too, Leland. We could be
I have
out
no
there 5
problem with
o'clock in
that,
the morning. But yes, October 13th looks promising. So I will firm that up and get some promotional materials now.
Okay, 10 p.m.?
10
10
10
a.m.,
p.m.?
I'm sorry,
Absolutely.
10 a.m.
Everyone brings flashlights.
Yeah, everybody brings flashlights. Right.
Oh, actually, I might. Yes.
Good.
Add. Yes.
Can I ask for
Today.
bathroom break?
We have gone long.
Only got,
yes.
got 2 seconds.
Yes. Take a quick. And is anybody else warm in here? Should we
Yeah.
open a window? Are we allowed to open a window? can we open one?
Do we have to vote?
Are we voting on this thing today?
When we get to it, we will talk about, or are we up to it? That was the update on the trail walks. So
Without Lauren, that will.
So the next item on the agenda, Leland will come back, is the proposed agricultural commission. I think we've all feel a little talked out on it at the moment.
I think.
There's been a lot of energy and information thrown at us this evening. And I mean, we could certainly vote, but there you go. I always like to vote on something concrete. Right now, I feel like we're voting on an idea of an agricultural commission, which conceptually, I'm in favor conceptually, but I just feel like I need a little more, something concrete to vote on.
I agree, and I'm confused too when I don't understand.
Should we wait for Leland to return?
There he is, he's back.
Who does the leases for the farm?
The Board of Selectmen.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that when we talk about this, like, I think whatever issues they are, we all have to understand, you know what I mean, like, understand what we're voting on specifically,
Yeah.
you know, so, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like,
Yeah, because if the Board of Selectmen are really the ones.
They really should make the decision. However, we,
yeah,
we,
the
you know,
Board
we
of
can.
Selectmen
I
should
don't
be,
really understand why.
yeah.
Why, I don't know why this is.
Are we talking about ag again?
So we're up to ag, to catch you guys back up.
Come on,
Welcome back.
you know,
Um,
I hope this is okay.
Oh yeah, oh
Please,
absolutely.
yeah.
That's fine.
We're past public comment though. Yes, we're back to ag, and we're fully digesting the energy and information that we all received for
Right.
an astounding, almost an hour of public comment.
And there was a town that has a committee that's doing it. Is there any possibility of having a committee for a number of months, say, and see how it works out, and then you know,
Yeah, so New Milford has,
New Milford,
They've
I
got
believe it
committees and
was. They've had
commissions, but I
committees for
think-
years, and it seems to work for them.
yeah, they have, I think they might have slightly
So is there
different.
any possibility
structure.
of doing that for like a specific amount of time, 6 months, a year, whatever, and then going from there? If that works, fine. You know, let's go into, you know, rather than going into it full bore right off the bat. Is there a possibility of doing it that way?
Yeah,
You take that energy and pour it into that, you know, and, you know, bring people
Well,
along.
one of the things the thing I cited from the.
yeah,
there
can you
was-
see, I
Yeah.
want to see that
Milford
one,
has
because
one. It
I
works
looked
fine.
all over the internet trying to
So
find latest
this
things.
is here, Community Farms Preservation Program, right? Which is probably the single biggest fund you could access. And what the language is, establish agricultural commission and/or program for farmland preservation. There's no actually language that says a committee,
What is
right?
a program?
What is a program? I don't really know.
Yeah.
And one of the things that has come up before is starting a nonprofit. I think my sense of, you know, being on the ag committee and having talked with a lot of these people on a regular basis, you know, advocates and mostly farmers, is that I think there's a level of frustration in the group because they just feel as though, you know, we have the numbers, we can fill the commissions, and we really are going to be active. And I think there are a number of farmers right now. I think the wave, if you look at what's happening, I mean, even in Bethany, with getting, you know, Connecticut Farmer of the Year, you know, and I think there's a groundswell happening. But I also think there's a level of frustration, and I'm sorry to say younger, but particularly amongst the younger ones, that kind of they're looking like, well, why are you guys against us? And I think it was too bad we sort of suddenly got adversarial for that little bit, you
Yeah.
know, after that comment, because
We
I don't
didn't.
think it has anything to do.
We didn't.
No, but I'm just saying, there is no adversary. I
There
think what
isn't.
there really is there
No, there isn't.
is so much work to be done by a commission.
Yeah.
And if you can man up that commission, that's what our community needs now. And I think as a conservation commission, we have a lot ahead of us and a lot of our plate without even looking at
Well,
agriculture.
I think the things that I wrote down that are important for what the ag lease issues, guidelines for farmers, preservation and a sustainable future. I think that if we can't just say, oh, here's a commission, I think that we have to give them some,
Yeah.
those are the points that I heard are relationships between farmers. You guys can make a commission based on this. These are and grants, you know what I mean? As opposed to just saying, okay, well here, I think that those are the issues that are important to them. So let them create that with those, not just like full out, like, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, I think it needs to be,
Defined.
directed in a certain way. I think there needs to be guidelines. If you create this commission,
Well,
these are the things that are important
yeah,
to you, so
and-
let's do it, that's
I
what you
think
have to do it with.
You really hit on it, because what Mika is asking for is not for us to review the guidelines or what the ordinance would say. What he's looking for is us to say, here's what we like
Yeah.
and here's what we don't like.
Yes.
In general, we're in favor or not in favor, right? And I think that's where our job sort of ends.
All right. I guess what I keep struggling with is, I appreciate there's a need for support. I hear that, but I'm still not convinced. I mean, take conservation out of it, it has nothing to do with conservation. I'm not sure that's a commission responsibility. So although there's a great need and it needs to be met, maybe they need a farmers group. I don't know that it's a town commission thing. The grant issue I keep going back to, if that is actually something you need an ag commission to get a grant, that is important. But I think with that language, if we had a committee or we had somebody
But
that
that's
was
only
providing
one,
support.
that's only one
And
grant.
that's-
There are other grants that
I would just-
require-
There are, I think,
There are grants for
21.
municipalities.
Actually, I have the list here.
Can I see that printout that you
I
guys
saw a
did?
lot
I
of
agree there needs to be
Hey,
better
the
guidelines. I
can get
agree
grants
they
for
need a way,
Yeah,
a
many of
procedure
them.
to
There are many
advocate for
grants
their
that-
needs
It's
and have it spelled out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
But are there many that they can't get?
so I was just trying to figure out the date. So this is 24.
Can't get.
So the one, just to clear the air on the Community Farms Preservation Program,
Yeah.
this is the 2014 language. The newer language does have a greater flexibility, so the deemed program has changed a bit in the language. It allows a conservation commission, as long as the town has pointed out a commission to be focused on agriculture, and the
I think
conservation
they said
commission.
joint commission, right?
No, I think it's loosened slightly. It doesn't specifically say program.
Here's
It
the thing,
cleans
have
it
a
up.
commission or not, that, like, I understand what you're saying, Tracy, but like, so what's a commission or not? Like, give them a commission. I don't understand why would be the purpose not to do it, though.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
So
Like,
I don't
understand.
know. I guess
Because
I don't
there's
know.
too many commissions. Well, that's not a good. That's not.
I don't know.
You know what I mean?
I mean, that
Like,
that
if
to me
it's,
is like
these
a.
are people that pay
There's always-
taxes. I think that they have a right to create commission. I just want to make sure it's under the right. It's done in a directed way
Hopefully,
where.
if there was a real objection, if there was a problem, if somebody, who I have absolutely no idea, but if somebody came and had a real problem with it, they would have been here tonight, don't you think?
yeah, and I have the same sentiment. I just wanted to reiterate my concerns about it, which are not to say not to do a commission, but my concerns get to staffing a commission. The longer a commission goes on, the harder it is to keep that energy going. And as you've indicated, that we've had lots of inactive
Yeah.
commissions in our town.
That's what happens.
But I do agree, it's good to take advantage of that energy. Certainly when Massaro started up, there was a huge groundswell, and taking that energy and riding it has created the success that it is today. So my concern is just the longevity of staffing it. My other concern is harm that a commission can do for the constituents that it's trying to represent. My one example is that if a farm wishes to enhance its operations because its customer base is growing and it wants to put in a parking area, an ag commission could act in a function that blocks the ability for that farm to actually enhance its operations and expand its potential farming operation.
Why would it do that?
Why it would do that? Well,
You have an example, I think?
I have a specific example, but I prefer not to name names here. But,
Hypothetically speaking, how would it work?
Competition.
hypothetically, because it's town-owned property, because the town commissions talk about town properties, right? We can't necessarily
All the time, yeah.
block something that a private landowner or advocate against something a private owner is doing. But with a town-owned parcel, a town commission has greater control over it and greater sway in place. So, yeah, for example, we could say Massaro or Ethan at Cohen Farm. If you wanted to do something and the members of the Ag Commission felt that it was wrong, they could stand up and make a lot of noise and, in my view, prevent Ethan or Massaro from doing something that would actually greatly enhance their farm. I'm not
Actually,
saying that it would happen.
But you're actually bringing up an interesting thing, is something that came up in the forum, is in Northford, the guy who's chairman of that said one of the things the Ag Commission did do was sort of enforce regulations on good farming versus bad farming. In other words, Andrea was talking about real proper use of land where you're really looking at 20-year cycle and teaching these guys, and a lot of these guys are learning every day. But that I think they can recommend things that are would be parts of leases that would govern bad use or good use. Define that.
But how can we protect farmers like Ethan and the other guy who lost his? I mean, that's not right. There should be something in place for the people who are doing. These are like I sent you the email about the new girl that moved to that Center Road farm. Those are the kinds of people that we want to move to this town. People who care, they want to contribute. And so, how can we encourage that kind of, and help them to protect themselves? They don't have a lot of money. I mean, clearly, Ethan's,
Right.
but he should be able to feel that he wants to put his heart in something, but we're not going to. He can just pull it away from him. So I think that's what I'm hearing. So. I think whether or not you create a commission or not, there should be these things should be in place somehow for these people, because they're not now, and that's what I heard.
Are the people who write the lease or who regulate the leases going to have the final say on this? I mean, we don't have the final say, right?
The problem is that leases are too short.
Right. No, that's what I'm saying.
I think what would happen is
if
the
the Board of
commission would
Selectmen.
recommend guidelines for leases, right? And I would guess.
No, I'm asking.
Oh.
I'm asking. The Board of Selectmen signs the leases, right? They're the ones who limit the leases at this
Yes.
point. Is that correct? Are they the ones who will have the
Or are
final
they even
say?
involved with the leases, or is it just?
Well, that
Where
I think
are
is
they
an
getting their
important
information from? Like, how do
question.
they go
Yes.
about? I mean,
That's an
and that.
important question.
For the existing leases that are ongoing, I mean, they're long-standing, they've been written, and they just get renewed
every
and,
year.
And that's a timing thing too.
But
I'm
how
not sure how
come-
Keith ended up getting pushed aside, but
But I think that's sort of important as, a separate issue for me it is to, I mean,
It reads.
that's a
Conservation
concern
committee, right.
aside from supporting the setting up an agricultural.
Also, the
I can-
commission
I can
is
tell you
advisory. They have no. It's their only advisory.
I
They
know,
don't
but
have any power
from our
over
perspective,
changing.
I don't wanna just say, set it up and then they still don't get what
They
they
still
want
don't. Yeah,
in
the
terms
leases
of
are
the leases.
Right,
the
it's the
structure that's
best
been set
way
up by the
to have-
town.
Yeah.
For them to have a voice. I don't,
Yes,
that's my
I
question.
see your
What's the best
point.
way to get a voice?
So we have a list of concerns that came out of the Farmers Forum, and we're trying to work through them and accomplish some of the things. So to your point about what you said about how Orange deals with this, and the reason they don't have a commission is because they've got a lot of farmer representation on other boards and commissions. We've appointed a farmer to TPZ, we've appointed a farmer to EDC, and we'd like to appoint a farmer to conservation next time there's an opening. So that's an easy thing that we can do in
Can
the
we just
interim.
add some farmers to the committee now?
No,
Why?
because the ordinance outlines how many positions are
Okay.
on here. So in the interim, that's something that's been easy to accomplish while it's being decided whether or not.
Can we add, can we add them to us somehow? Like, what is the ad hoc? Is that what it's called? I don't know. Like, can we somehow bridge the two commissions together? No.
Well, the other one doesn't exist.
Okay. All right.
So while that's being debated, we're trying to work on some of the issues that have come up in the interim
Cool.
before it's decided yay or nay. So at least some of these things are getting moved. So we've been talking about the leases, and I'm not involved enough to know what the issue is, but I know that there's a legal issue that's been raised about whether or not we can extend the leases past 1 year to 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is. So it's something that we've been talking about internally, and I know there's some sort of legal, I don't know if it's a hurdle or a roadblock.
Does Massaro have a 1 year lease at a time as well?
No, they have a 20-year lease.
Well, how does that happen then? If the farmers have-
I don't know, I'm not the
Okay.
attorney.
All right. Well,
but-
you're telling information about that, so I'm asking if you had additional.
I don't have that.
So they
I
have,
signed the
they
original
have,
lease on that one, so that was in the original agreement.
some of the
It was
leases,
an
for
addition.
farm leases with towns are up to 50 years, right? And some of them, most of them that go up to 50 years are 5 years with option to renew each year for 5-year periods.
In other towns?
Yeah,
Okay.
so I'm not sure of the legality of it all, but
But that
They
that's
certainly
what we need to
exist,
figure-
yeah.
Well, that's what we need to figure out.
Yeah, and I haven't been, I'm just giving you guys an update. I haven't been
Yeah.
involved in
But
those conversations.
I guess as a committee member, I need to know if that's something that I need to be like, is that something that I'm involved in or something that I'm not? Because if it is something that I'm involved in, then I want to know how I can help these, you know, what I mean, or what I can
So
do.
I think that's something
At
we ought to
this point,
find out
technically,
anyway now.
Yeah.
Like, nobody seems to know what the process is.
And that's,
Yeah.
so I personally think that.
I was so sad to hear him say.
Yeah, I didn't like
you know,
that.
I'd heard that before, but I
I
didn't
think we
realize
gotta
it was
figure
just
out how
pulled
we
like
can
that.
get it back, like figure out how, you know, as opposed to, I feel like sometimes these committees, we talk about a lot of stuff, but let's actually figure out how we can do something as opposed to just, you know what I mean, like.
So let me ask you guys, I'm thinking of suggesting a motion, and that as the Conservation Commission, that we say we've heard enough conversation, that we feel it's important that the commission group, Mika's group, consider a farmers commission. You know, that literally we're saying, you guys are the ones in charge of all the commissions. We've looked at all this and we don't find enough objection to say no, and we don't really know enough to say yes, but we would like to, and this isn't very well said motion, I'll try and have to, Jason can redo this, but what we would like to do is recommend that the, what is his commission called?
Ordinance committee.
The ordinance committee, that the ordinance committee consider an agricultural commission.
That's not really the question based on something you said.
Well, that's a vote for the Agriculture Commission.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't know if the members.
I don't think I'm ready to vote tonight. I have a question for Jason too.
Also, no offense, Leland, but you are in favor of the Agriculture Commission, so I don't know if you're gonna be able to vote on that. You know, is there a conflict there? I mean,
So
I'm
actually,
just-
Jason and I have talked about this, and I was gonna mention this before the vote.
Mhm.
I
I
didn't.
mean, it's just occurred.
I don't even think you should be proposing motions.
Okay, so what I said to Jason, I would bring this up, but I also am very familiar with what constitutes conflict of interest and recusation. And the key part of that, and I've talked to Jerry Weiner about it, is that I have to have economic benefit from this.
I'm talking about ethics. Forget. I know.
No.
he's gonna
So
ethically doesn't
what
matter.
I would say is that, and what I would argue is that because I'm passionate about something, shouldn't be grounds for recusing myself.
You have a dual role. It's ethical. It has nothing to do with.
Well, what's my dual role?
You are here representing your
Just a question I
agricultural
had.
group. And that is the.
But what if we
And
had
you've
a
been a
farmer
strong
on-
advocate
what if
for
we
your
had a farmer on the
agricultural group, and you
commission?
haven't
That's what I say.
tried to be neutral in this role.
Why can't we add
I-
some more people?
I know,
Why can't
but
we
we're trying to
change
make
the
an
ordinance and add some more
unbiased,
people to it?
Then you'd have
you
to go
know.
before the ordinance committee,
But
which is
in
where
other
this
words,
is.
I know what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
I know what you're saying.
I still have a
know what
question
you're
for
saying.
you.
Yeah, I just,
What is your
I
question?
just asked the question. I didn't say I had an opinion
Right.
one way or another.
Wait, Tracy has a question.
So you raised the issue of how an agricultural commission can actually hurt farmers in town if it's a town-owned farm.
Right.
So I'm wondering again, how would an agricultural commission change the relationship between the
Okay,
town
but
and the
Jason's
town-owned
on the
farms?
Massaro farm. He's also a farmer here, aren't you? So isn't that another ethical
Well,
issue?
I'm no longer associated with them. I'm not on their board.
You're
I
not.
go, I
you
go
don't
up and
associate with Massaro anymore? No.
And I would say Jason's tried to be very neutral.
I chainsaw the trail from time to time, but
Okay.
that's it.
Okay. Okay.
And sometimes I deliver mail because it gets misdelivered to my house still. But But
so-
yeah, my relationship with them formally has ended. I do have the experience behind
Oh,
all
okay.
of it.
But I guess what I'm saying is, if I'm advocating my opinion on something and it isn't in agreement with everybody else's, why should I recuse myself? And you
It was
vote
just-
no, I vote yes. I mean, we all.
Because you're not, I think I'm supposed to be here with an open mind. You're here already decided. So my perception of you is that you're not here with an open mind, hearing the pros and cons. You're here with a mission, and I think what really threw me, I didn't like it to begin with, but when there have been a lot of statements like, well, I think everyone here is just going to vote for it, and a lot of assumptions, some statements made that are inappropriate, and certainly coming from someone who is a part of the group that's advocating for it. I think
I'm not sure I know what you mean.
at the last meeting, you said, well, I know everyone here is in support of this anyway, or there isn't anyone here who won't support this. And I think a lot of us were still processing it. I still am. So
No, I think
to
that's
make
good.
that
So-
assumption and make that statement is overstepping. I think it's inappropriate for any of us, but especially someone who is, part of the group that wants this.
Yeah, and you made that comment at the last meeting, and I agreed with you. I think that's right. I didn't mean to even suggest that everybody's mind was made up. And clearly it's not, but I'm just advocating that if somebody feels strongly and is not about something and is passionate about something, they shouldn't be told they can't vote.
And maybe it isn't even the vote. Maybe it was more at this point, I think it's too late in the process. I think there was less room for discussion among the members, because I think we were, your approach was not neutral.
Do you have?
But I wanted to finish I think people don't really care about this, so if I'm the only one who cares, then we'll just go with it. But I wanted to go back to my question about the town. So how does it change the relationship with the town to have a commission? Like, is there a role now for the town with these farms that would change if we had an agricultural commission? This is like over my head, so I'm just.
Because we're in the situation where there's two farmers on town-owned property, and there's no formal agricultural commission that acts as advisor or perceived overseer in that capacity. The relationship is sort of vague, I think, at this point. There's a legal agreement with Massaro with that lease, and I know Ethan has a legal agreement with the lease that he has as caretaker of the Darling House, as well as.
But they're not in the same amount of time. That's the issue. That was my.
Yes.
He's saying
Oh,
it's
yeah.
1 year
Oh,
at a time.
absolutely.
So my question was, why does Massaro have this much of a lease, and how come? Where's the
So
why is
that's just how it was negotiated. When Massaro was formed, it was a 20-year lease with
But
10
Betsy
years
just
and
said
then
there
two
was
5-year
legal-
extensions.
But she was just saying there were legal issues regarding leases. So
Yeah.
That's what I've been told, but I don't know.
I think
what
the legal
issues
issue
are.
is that it just needs to be reviewed by an attorney to make sure that there's nothing.
Could be just the way it's written up.
And
It could
some
be
of
just
it,
the way it's
is
written.
the comfort level. It's been, for example, the Darling House. It's always.
But that's arbitrary, and that's
Well, it's
where
not so the Darling House, I know specifically, they give 1-year leases because that's the caretaker, and they want the opportunity, as any landlord renter situation, you want the opportunity that if you've got a bad tenant, that it's harder to evict somebody than it is just to let the lease go. So that's the situation at the Darling House. It's a different arrangement at Darling. You've got the caretaker who has the opportunity to farm on the land, whereas Massaro, it's leased to a nonprofit organization that then carries on with farmers.
Okay, so and then for the issue with Keith, then what happened with Keith? Like,
And that's just, I think, inertia. I mean, it's been 1-year leases going back to when Keith started with it.
But see, that's what
So-
you want to avoid. So you see somebody, you want. So I understand.
That's
My
something
point
we
is
could
is
help
that
with possibly.
I understand what you're saying, but then if they're coming with real issues that aren't being addressed,
Yeah.
and they're trying to advocate for themselves in order so these things, because there's no consistency and there is a degree of arbitrary or whatever that is, then I understand why they need that, because
Right.
if there's no one else checks and balancing it, then people are like Keith aren't gonna, and then people like, what if we lose, like we want kid, like not kids but like men like Ethan,
Right, and Andrea needs her
Women.
Christmas tree farm.
women.
Don't you all need Christmas?
I understand, but the question is, I'm not necessarily for or against it, but somebody needs to be at, whoever it is, something needs to be at. There's nobody advocating for these people.
Right.
So
And I'm comfortable with some
if we need a
emotion.
commission for the people to self-advocate and we can't do that for them, then why wouldn't we have a commission for that? Because, in other words,
Right.
you know what I'm saying?
So can I know it always seems impersonal when someone types on a laptop when we're talking, but I've been taking notes and I'm trying to formulate something that I think we all have some commonality on. I'm not gonna push a motion yet, but here's what I've written down. Something that could be voted upon is that the Conservation Commission agrees that the purposes of an Ag Commission could be to address leases on town-owned property, assist with the economic development for farmers and farm labor, connect farmers to grant opportunities, connect farmers with landowners, advocate for farmers on town-related actions, act in a manner that does not hinder farmers, and also indicate that the membership of such a commission should be farmers, former farmers, realtors, land use attorneys.
That's why you're the chairman.
I think that sounds really
I'm here
good.
just to absorb it all and
The only thing that's
boil it
missing,
down.
I think, would be the preservation issue. Another bullet to something, you're the wordsmith here, so, I mean, something with preservation in it, like,
And that's where conservation and this organization definitely
exactly.
overlap, because we, on our open space plan is to preserve farmland.
and I do
so
think
they
that
could
Walden
also,
Road was preserved, however they did that, was preserved, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So,
And another,
and so.
another way, I think we all agree that there are needs that appear to not be being met currently, and so that however the town should consider how those needs are going to be met. They should find a way to meet those needs regardless of what
That's my
Yep.
issue, yeah,
Um,
whether a commission
what
or
it
not.
looks like.
However it
Those-
looks,
we all
whether
agree that there are
these
these
are
needs.
real issues that need to be addressed.
If they set up the commission, who defines it?
so technically I would expect the ordinance committee formalizes the language.
Formalizes
So
it.
that
They have
goes
the
away
last
from
say.
us, that's not.
Correct, yes. Just as this commission, is purely advisory, the Ag Commission would also be advisory. It would not be granted the abilities of that TPZ has. TPZ has
Yeah, no,
authority.
they'd be
It can stop things and do things.
Yeah.
We could say, these are the purposes, these are the needs that we perceive, that we've heard, these are the purposes of the commission, do what you want.
Well, because this isn't the, this
Is that the
So-
motion?
So you ship them to the next I mean, you can't do that, like.
Well, we don't have any
No.
authority yet.
Right, well, that's what's needed at this point. I know
Okay.
ordinance is
Well,
meeting
then
on October
This is
4th.
an easy vote, right?
But,
I mean,
but the idea is that ordinance has been waiting on us and economic development. I don't know if there's any
waiting
other
on us to
I don't know if
actually
there's been any
guide,
others
give
that
them some guidance.
ordinance
So-
is waiting on, but I do know that
So this is guidance.
this would be the guidance that I could draft a letter. So maybe here's my motion, that I draft a letter to ordinance indicating that the Conservation Commission has heard the farmers and agrees that these are the needs that need to be met, whether through a commission, committee, or what have you, it just needs to be met. You don't need to write this down verbatim, that's
I can't, but.
Fair enough.
and the purposes or the needs that need to be met are leases on town property.
A process for addressing issues that come up with the town.
Yep,
Okay.
yep. So let me just run
Right.
down. So the town leases, additional advocates for farmland preservation, assisting economic development for farmers as it relates to farm labor and farm expansion, connecting farmers with grant opportunities, connecting farmers with landowners, advocating for farmers on town-related actions, and also it should not act in a manner to hinder farmers.
so we're for the commission as long as those are the things in there, is that what you're saying?
These are
It's
what
up
we
for the ordinance committee to decide.
right.
Yeah.
It's up to the ordinance
Right.
to
So
Yeah,
that's
that's
it.
and these are
that's
the
the
things that
Also,
we see as
education
needs to
we
be
should throw in
addressed.
there.
education and is there like a
Agribusiness, yeah.
business element?
So and then they have to go through a whole nother thing to do this?
Well, that's their job, it's not really our job.
Okay. Alright.
And
No,
my
no,
battery's
I don't
running
know.
out,
I'm
so
just
this meeting
wanna-
might end
I'm just
shortly.
trying to figure out,
That's a
you
lot to
know,
put
the
together. I think you've got
bureaucratic-
enough in there.
Do we want to mention that should a commission be formed, we would like the membership to be made up of farmers, former farmers, realtors, and land use?
I don't know, realtors.
Yeah.
Well, I know Ethan had mentioned that, so.
I'm gonna say nay on the realtors.
Well, because, and
How
why,
about
again, why do
I don't think we wanna
define
say that, yeah.
I
Yeah, I'm
think
not-
I think
That's
that-
up to ordinance.
I mean, we could have a position on it.
Yep.
I mean, I've got my opinion on it. I think farmers and former farmers should be the majority of an agricultural.
Put it in there, it
At
can't
the
hurt
very least,
anything, yeah.
contain you know,
You could be a
whatever percentage
lawyer
of
that
farmers
has
and former farmers
those
and
issues with
then-
leases.
Well, I mean, he's got a,
You know,
Jason
as
has a
long as the
point,
farmers and
you
former
want
farmers
people
are
that are, know what, what they're doing with the
Right.
farming, so that's who you want,
But
farmers,
realtors-
former
most
farmers. and-
realtors aren't gonna know that. Most realtors aren't gonna know.
Alright, so
Or
what
other
about,
professionals who
so what
work-
about land use attorneys or
Right,
land
that's
use
fine, yeah.
specialists or something?
Yeah, something like that sort.
They
yeah.
can override it, right? Whoever.
Oh, this is just
Yeah, that's
recommendations,
just,
they can do
that's
whatever they'd
just
like.
right.
We're not written in stone here. That's my motion.
That sounds good to me. So that means
Poor
before,
Betsy.
so before your commission
Is there a
pulls
second?
you on your way,
Yes.
I
down
second
you,
the motion.
your
Okay.
correct line?
What was it?
What am I voting on though specifically?
You're
That we're
vo-
for the commission as long as it's with these guidelines.
Now, the vote is that I'm gonna write a letter to the ordinance
Okay,
saying that we have heard the farmers and identified these as issues that need to be addressed, whether
Okay.
it's through a commission or committee,
okay.
and then the things that I described.
And then what happens?
I give the letter to ordinance and they take our recommendations. If they want to form a commission with those, they can. If they want to,
If the ag commission wants to form a commission with those
no,
recommendations?
ordinance.
No.
This goes to
Oh,
ordinance.
Okay,
So I'm writing a letter to the ordinance committee.
okay.
It has to anyway.
An ordinance will review the letter. And it's just our identification of needs of farmers as it relates to agriculture in town.
So do they get a commission or not though? That's the question.
Ordinance decides that. We don't
Ordinance
decide.
decides that.
We don't
Okay.
decide that.
We wouldn't decide it at the.
No, they go right to the
and
Why
commission.
didn't they go to
anyway.
the ordinance
No.
committee?
That's
They
what
have.
I'll let them, but
So
we
did the
identified the
ordinance
needs that
back
they
to
need,
us?
Yes.
They
And now
wanted
we give it back to them?
economic,
Yes.
yeah, they wanted economic.
we
and
identified the needs that these
Okay.
folks are looking for,
I see.
that's fine. Right, pretty
Yeah.
much, right, I think that's
Yeah.
All right.
reasonable.
That sounds fine to me.
Any other discussion on this?
Okay,
As you know what the motion is.
I do, and I'm
Okay.
gonna share it with Jason tomorrow just to double check that I have it accurately.
All in favor of the motion?
aye,
Aye. Oh my God, it's unanimous.
okay.
Unanimous.
Good job, Jason.
Excellent.
That's great.
Okay.
Got it done.
Are we done?
No.
Discuss the Litchfield Turnpike property.
What else?
So I'm going to breeze through the last two items. Next on the agenda is to discuss access to the Litchfield Turnpike property, 1875 Litchfield Turnpike, also known as the Nugent property. I think we've heard from Tom Ebersold. He is, the trail master all around West Rock Park. He would like to see additional access to West Rock. And the best way to get there from Woodbridge is either on the existing trail that goes a long way down and up towards a reservoir. The other way is through the backside of the Nugent property. So he recommended trying to get written permission from the landowner, and that
Right.
seems to be the low-hanging fruit way to go about it. I would like to make a motion that we approach Nugent just to get written permission to access the trails on the back of his property.
Second.
I'll second that motion.
My only other discussion on this is to make sure there's no hunting going on the property, because we don't want people walking past a guy looking
That
for
would be
pheasant
right if we
around Thanksgiving.
confirmed that.
Right? So, just that's my only little note there. All right.
Could we request, that's another question I had in terms of, a lot of the trails, what is allowable for hunting? I mean,
500 feet
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
but
technically.
can we as the Conservation Commission take this up at some point? Because, I mean, I'm a hunter, and I don't hunt in Woodbridge, right? It's just not safe. There are too many people, and what, have we already killed somebody, you know?
Yeah, that's why
Well, I
there's
don't
no,
believe Mr. Nugent.
Well, no,
lets
but
people hunt.
it's something that I think as a Conservation Committee, I'd love to see us take up, but particularly for the safety of us walking
People
on
hiking, yeah.
properties, you know?
Alright. So we'll take that up in the future. Motion on the table of approaching Nugent, getting access so that we can officially walk it in November, especially.
Just the simple written.
Just a simple written, we're allowing public
Yeah.
access, and
Yeah,
assuring
I
him
second
that,
that motion. I think
and
that's
assuring
good.
him with the state statutes that he's covered. He's
Yeah.
okay. People won't sue him if they fall down the rocks and break their leg.
Yeah.
Will the goal be to be also working towards an easement, or no?
We'll
One motion at a time?
Yeah, one motion at a
Okay.
time. All in favor of the letter?
I-
Okay, another unanimous one. And on to item 6, Chairman's report. I've got nothing to report right now, other than it's 9:20 and we've been here a very long time for a regular meeting.
Also, we have other groups that are gonna support us on that letter. The New Haven Bird Club,
Yeah.
and the West River Watershed Coalition, and possibly the Land Trust, so.
All right,
So,
good.
Well, the other
he'll be
thing
getting
that-
lots of letters.
The other thing I wanted to ask before, can we put something about invasive species? Was that anything we?
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, we'll tackle that for sure.
Okay.
All right. I'll move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. That was a
So now
long.
we all need you to